I know, right?
22,
The
22.
last
Yeah,
guy,
it's all messed
22.
up. Yeah, 22.
Kenny Pickett. And then you got guys like I know I'm kind of jumping around here, but you made another point that I will contest as far as uh, pro day and combine numbers, right? So as exciting as it is to see these quarterbacks, it's not everything to and I'm not saying you said that it's everything, but I know you did say, teams are looking to see
You like
what
to take the
numbers and
two, you know. You like
right,
to
of course. But Zach Wilson showed out, right? He had an amazing combine and pro
yeah,
day.
he was awesome in the pro day.
And look what we
The kid
got.
on the Titans too. Willis was it, right? hmm
Malik Willis, and it just wows you when they're obviously playing against no defense, right? They're just showing that they have arm talent, but arm talent isn't gonna win you games in the NFL, and I
No.
think that everybody knows that. That's why coaching and learning the game as a quarterback is Trevor Lawrence. You take that as a perfect example, right? He knows the game of football. He finally was around a competent coach who not Urban Meyer, and they win a playoff game this year. So do with everything as a quarterback, the right scheme, the right fit, and the right coaching system has even more to do. So that's kind of that. I don't know if you had any closing thoughts on that combine quarterback talk, EP.
CJ Stroud's the only real person that I'm kind of I know you alluded to Ohio State with Justin Fields. I think he'll probably go right behind uh Bryce. So I'm excited to see what he does. I know that his completion percentage and his yards kind of went down from 21 to 22, but I think that we're gonna see something special out of him.
Yeah, I mean, we saw his best game as a college player in his last game versus Georgia in the national championship, which should have resulted in a win. Unfortunately, Ohio State's kicker couldn't nail the kick, but we saw CJ Stroud first-handedly take over that second half and bring the Ohio State Buckeyes to the championship water. He just couldn't get them to drink out of it
Water.
because the kicker. So that's another guy like CJ Stroud. Honestly, if the Colts draft CJ Stroud, I'll be the happiest kid alive. Like, I'll be the happiest. The Anthony Richardson thing, I'm like getting on board the more I see from him, the more Colts Twitter is talking me into this. If you would have asked me 4 months ago, 5 months ago, Anthony Richardson, hell no. Hell
I think
no.
anybody
Like,
would have
I'm
gave the
good.
same answer.
I'm good.
Yeah.
But there is that upside, there is that ceiling, there is that potential that you look at and you gravitate towards. Like, yo, if this guy truly develops into what we think he can, you'd want him to play for your team. So
Hey, and not for
we still
nothing, I
have
think that he kind of not
another
to cut
month and
you
a
off,
half.
but he kind of looks like
No,
a
you
not
go.
even looks, but CJ Stroud. I feel like is I don't want to say the epitome, but I could see him in a Colts uniform. Very precise pocket passer, not a crazy runner, but good vision, precise pocket passer.
Yeah, and
Built
certainly athletic enough.
Yeah, built like a superb athlete. So I could definitely see him in a Colts uniform.
CJ Stroud to Indy. If not CJ, Anthony Richardson. I would love Bryce Young. I'm not gonna lie. As a Colts fan, like, Bryce Young is exciting. He has all the talent in the world. He's a poised quarterback. He improvises. He's smart. He sees the game. That's everything you want. What we question is the size, and we've seen Tua Tagovailoa take concussion after concussion this past season, and that's I don't
His
know
head's
if you
still
want to
ringing.
risk that. Yeah, yeah. I don't know if you want to, risk that. So I guess we'll move on to the MLB. I wanted to talk about two topics in the MLB before we head to that NBA world, because we know it's March 2nd. The NBA world is heating up. The Bucks are on like a 15-game win streak, and Joker's about to win his third MVP straight, which we'll get into all that. But spring training is here. The Red Sox. Shout out to my cousin, by the way. I want to say this. Shout out to my cousin Lou. He helped me with all this setup you've seen. You guys are seeing. We're on live. We're on YouTube. If you're gonna take the time to join at any point to watch this episode, most of the credit should be given to Lou. The man put in hours this week helping me out, helping me and E out, trying to figure this thing out. So, I always say you can't do it alone, right? Like, I've done this podcast for years now, and I'll never try to take credit for everything, because even when I was doing things by myself, it was always either somebody in my ear supporting me, somebody over here helping me out with this, giving me a hand, maybe giving me a tip here or there. So, you know, you just got to appreciate what you got. But I say all that to say the Red Sox, they did smack the shit out of the Phillies today, 15-3. It was spring training, but 15-3. That's that's a score right there. But fuck all that. I want to talk about the new rule that they just implemented in the MLB. I'm not sure if you heard about it, Evan. I'm sure you did, but there's a new pitch count it's like a pitching batters count. It's actually weird.
It's a time clock.
Timer.
It's crazy. Yeah, it's like a shot clock. Yeah.
It's a shot clock. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll kind of go over the rule here so everybody's on the same page. And by definition, I wanted to get it right. In September of 2022, the MLB announced 3 rule changes that were approved by the league's competition committee. The rules were adapted after extensive testing in the minor league level over a several-year period with feedback from MLB player and umpire representatives. In an effort to create a quicker pace of play, a 30-second timer between batters will be implemented in 2023. Between pitches, a 15-second timer will be in place with the bases empty, and a 20-second timer with runners on base. So this rule change stipulates the following. The pitcher must begin his motion to deliver the pitch before the expiration of the pitch timer. Pitchers who violate the timer are charged with an automatic ball. Batters who violate the timer are charged with an automatic strike. Batters they must be in the box and alert to the pitcher, so making eye contact at the pitcher by the 8-second mark, or else be charged sounds crazy, with an automatic strike. With runners on base, the timer resets if the pitcher attempts to pick off or steps off the rubber. Pitchers are limited to 2 disengagements per plate appearance. So that's another rule here where pitchers were going, trying to pick guys off 3, 4, 5 times just to either get in their head or be on the road and get in the crowd or whatever the case was. However, this limit is reset if the runner or runners advance during the plate appearance. So there's a lot of caveats here. If a third pickoff is made, the runner automatically advances 1 base if the pickoff attempt is not successful. So this is a lot to unpack here. So we've seen it affect the game already. Boston versus, I forget who we were playing. I think Houston, if I'm not mistaken. But
the game ended on one, I think.
It just ended.
Yeah.
So I'll start with you, Evan. What do you feel as far as this rule? Do you think it's better for the game, or do you think it's going to ruin the game?
I think it could be clunky at first. It's funny that you bring this up. Like literally right before we got on the live, I was scrolling on Twitter and someone no lie, 3 pitches struck someone out in 27 seconds.
Wendy Peralta, he's a New York Yankee.
Yeah, he struck a dude out in 27 seconds. Now, just think of that. Think of every MLB playoff game you've ever seen. It may be 3 to 4 minutes between pitches alone. Like someone's got to step back, they got to rearrange their junk. Like it's a whole lot that goes on in between pitches.
Like
that's not any type of right. That's not any type of game at all. So I think at first it's going to be a little clunky. The adjustments are going to be fine, but it's kind of cool to see like a fast pacedness come to baseball, something that a dynamic that's never existed before. Like, and even then, it's another kind of it's another play for a pitcher, right? So the dude who got that 27 second strikeout for the Yankees, like he got that first strike, and it's like his eyes lit up. As soon as he got the ball back, he was already getting back into his motion. So it's a little bit of a different sort of strategy to employ. It was kind of exciting to see a strikeout happen that fast. So I do think outside of the initial like clunkiness and adjustment, it could be cool and beneficial. But on the back end of that, or the side that I don't really know how it may affect, is playoff baseball. Because sometimes between those pitches, playoff baseball to me is probably one of the best television viewing experiences for playoffs in all of sports. The tension that gets set in between pitches. To me is just it's a lot. And like losing that dynamic in playoff baseball, I don't know how I'm gonna feel about that until I see it in practice.
Yeah, I mean, good thing we have 162 of these games to watch before the playoffs come. E, what do you feel about this?
I saw it for the first time the other night. I was watching a Padres game where Manny Machado struck out, but that's besides the point. Um, and it looked weird. Yeah, it looked weird. It like you were saying, Evan, it's gonna look clunky. It's gonna look similar to what the that new flop rule in college basketball was this year. That just it didn't look good. Not even doesn't look good. But I mean, if they said they tested it and it's worked and got some feedback, I'm sure that down the road, like you said, 162 games, we'll see some benefit from it. I will definitely share the same sentiment as Evan about the playoff baseball atmosphere. That's going to be interesting to see how it affects it. And on another level, the gambling community, just to see how it affects the plays for this baseball season, and people taking
Yeah.
first fives. And I think the other biggest thing as well that I thought about was how players condition now, specifically pitchers, obviously, pitchers and batters, of course, but just to see how players condition for this more sped up. I think it's going to separate some of the cream from the crop. Not sure if that's a good thing yet, but I think that's what's going to happen.
No, that's a great observation right there. As far as them, baseball people, it's crazy. People don't realize how well conditioned you need to be to play baseball. They look at players that just sitting in the outfield or this, that, and the third. I mean, like these guys are uber focused, but at the same time putting in so much physical energy when running bases, right? When playing defense and attacking the ball, pitching, catching, right? It's a lot that goes into it that if the casual fan wouldn't understand, having never played or never trained for the sport. I wanted to touch on the playoff thing first. Obviously we don't know, right? We don't. And Evan's point was one of the best all night. Like playoff baseball is you're glued to the TV. Like you
I get
realize that
goosebumps thinking about it. Like
you'll turn around and you're
Yeah.
like everybody's just focused on this game. Where football is the same way because it's win and go home, one and done. And that to me, football has the best playoff experience because of the physicality and because of how tight everything is. Basketball is as enjoyable as anything. However, we get to see 7-game series, and we're going to see the 1 versus the 8. We're going to get a play-in. We're going to get a team that doesn't have it tonight, and things of that nature. With baseball, it's the 7-game series, but to you guys' point, it's such a laser focused game and a mental strategic game that pitchers are trying to get in batters' heads and vice versa. Managers are, we're seeing all the stops with the lineups, right? And pitchers coming in. They even had to change some rules around last year or whether it was last year, the last few years, where you can't change pitchers every at bat, like they even stopped doing that because it was getting so mental. However, I think like anything, at first, nobody likes anything. It's like somebody has to endorse it. Somebody has to rock it a few times and say it's okay. And then everybody else comes through like, oh, yeah, let's start doing that, right? Like baggy jeans are coming back in style, right? Who would have thought? So with time, I think this is going to be a good thing for the sport. I think at the beginning, like anything, there's going to be its ups and downs and there are bumps in the roads, and players are going to have to figure it out. And nobody trained for this their whole career, right? Everybody that's played baseball up until this point played it at their pace. They didn't play it with any rush. So to have to just like, hey, baseball is becoming a faster sport, guys. I wonder what it's going to do for TV, right? Like we're going to see shorter games. We're going to see hopefully less commercials during these baseball games, but I think it could be cool for the sport. I see the MLB and Rob Manfred, what they're trying to do here is just try to make it more exciting and like anything, bring more value to the sport. I'll be excited to see throughout the course of the season how that goes for the MLB. A lot of people be hating on Rob Manfred so if this flops, they're going to be calling for his head.
Yeah, they're going to call for him for sure.
Because they already been calling for his head. So,
can you
brought up Manny? Yeah.
My fault.
Go ahead,
Can you
bro.
imagine pitchers are gonna have to be so much more sharp and and so are batters. Like that, like you were saying, that mental game of like you just do a slider. You know what I'm saying? It's the counts
Yeah.
1 and 2. You're probably he might throw yeah, you're gonna have to know what pitch is coming, and you're gonna have to know what pitch you're about to throw when you just released the last pitch type of thing. So
Yeah.
it's gonna kind of apply a certain level of mental stamina. You know what I mean?
The good point you made, E, was that it's going to separate the cream from the crop. Like, those who got it are going to serve it, and those who don't, we're going to see the exposure, because being able to lock in and dial in 4 straight pitches, hitting that zone, 5 straight pitches, and you got to remember, like, a lot that goes into pitching is you're not just here to throw strikes, right? You're here to pitch around batters, certain batters. You're here to pitch to batters' cold spots. You're here to, attack their mental. Having to do that at an upped pace, I think we're gonna see a lot of weird relationships between pitcher and catcher, right? Like they're gonna have to develop things differently, and throughout the season, I think we're gonna see catchers come in the game based on who has the best repertoire with the pitcher, and it's not going to be like who's hitting the best for us right now, who's it's going to be like who has this best relationship with the pitcher, where they can get the call in, where the pitcher is going to be able to deliver and the catcher is going to be able to get it right for them. So it's a lot. I think it's deeper than we expect, but again, I say we'll be excited to see that throughout the season.
One thing I noticed real quick too, if you look at a lot of the spring training games, they're higher in runs. So it seems as if right now that's playing more towards the batters. Because every time I look, it's 9 to like 7, 14 to like 12. I'm like, in spring training, that's not even the top batters batting all the time.
What would you guys think, though? What would you guys think, that this is something that benefits the pitchers or the batters? Because in my opinion, like, I look at it as, I see both sides. Like, a batter has a lot to process, right? What's the count? It's the same on both sides. The pitchers and batter are processing the count. They're processing the shift of the defense. They're processing what's the score, what's the situation, runners on, and I think it's just going to be a cerebral thing. Like, whoever's got the brains for the sport is going to benefit in a rushed. It's just like anytime you have to rush or do anything at a faster pace, those who can stay composed in that situation are going to prevail. What do you guys feel about that as far as pitcher versus batter here?
I think initially it's gonna go to the batter's advantage, just because mechanically, I think it might cause more slip ups for pitchers. Just having to kind of speed up the process that they're normally used to doing. You think of a pitcher like Justin Verlander. He's been dominating the league for how long? You know what I mean? 20 some odd years, and now he has to change up his entire approach at a more advanced age. It could leave him more susceptible to not follow through all the way on his mechanics on his pitch. You could leave, you could leave something out over the plate against the wrong guy. And then it's out in the street, So I think it's going to lead to a lot of that initially until the pitchers and everything start to catch up to it. So this first year might be exciting because there's going to be more runs up on the board in a faster game. A baseball game comes on at like 7 p.m. at night. You could actually watch that and then go to bed at a reasonable hour before you have to go to work in the morning, which isn't always the case for a baseball game.
E, what you got? Final thought?
Yeah, I think it's tough to say, but I think we're seeing it right now with these run totals and spring training that it's definitely benefiting batters. I think the pitching systems and the pitching repertoires and the pitching staffs and bullpens will catch up eventually. Hopefully in the next couple of weeks before the opening day. But I think right now it's definitely looking like it's a batter's advantage.
I see it, and like he said, there's that 15-3, or I said that 15-3 Phillies Red Sox. Like, we're seeing a lot of runs so far. So I think all sports want to kind of figure out what the best way to have more scoring involved is for their leagues. And I mean, even with hockey, I don't know what changes have been made in hockey for the last 5-6 years, but when I was 12 and I started watching hockey, I don't remember 7-8 or 6-5, scores. Like I remember 2-3. I remember when it was a 1-zip shutout. You don't get that anymore. So definitely interesting. I wanted to move forward here though. That was good baseball talk. As far as now, matter of fact, we're gonna stay on baseball. I have Manny Machado, 11 years, $350 million. He got the extension.
Big money.
EP, yeah.
Big money.
You made a face.
Yo, fam. Big money that I don't know if he deserves. I see the potential of him to get back, but I mean, gone half the season last year. When he was there, he didn't really show up. Spring training not going so well so far. Like again, I know it's spring training, but it's not going. The contract's worth right now. So I don't know what it is. I don't know what San Diego sees. I'm sure they see something promising in the future. I hope that he gets back to that Manny Machado way, because I think it's great for baseball when he's doing what he does. But that's a big contract with not a lot of things to show for it right now.
Yeah, just to piggyback on that a little bit, I was looking at like some comparative stats, and his stats line up the exact same with Anthony Rizzo from the Yankees, and I think his deal is only about 80 million or something like that. So sometimes I'm not sure what goes into some of these bigger deals, with a lot of these years that get attached to it, especially for the Padres, who have I think 3 guys on like 10-year deals in the 300 millions between
Yeah.
Tatis,
Yeah.
Soto, and now Machado. Again, I know baseball, they're not really hamstring much by salary caps and things of that nature,
At
but
all.
it's going to be interesting to see when a lot of these contracts get into the latter half of their deals, right? I think back to when I was younger, Alex Rodriguez, right? He had a huge deal, and then you're thinking you're kind of waiting out the last 4 or 5 years of that deal, because it's not you're paying for past performance, and you're paying so in advance for what they might have previously did. He ended up spending like 2 or 3 of those years suspended because of steroids and stuff like that. And though that doesn't happen as much now, especially with baseball, which I think right now is really a young man's sport. Every all-star game you look, it's just littered with 21, 22, 23-year-olds. Like the lifespan of a superstar in baseball might not be that long all the time. Manny Machado is a good example. When he was on the Orioles, he was the buzz of the town. Everyone always spoke about him highly. He ends up getting traded to the Dodgers. He's just another guy on the Dodgers, and he's felt like just another guy on the Padres too so far. But I guess he was just another guy enough to get 300 mil. So he's doing something right that I'm not aware of.
Well, the Dodgers thought he was going to help them win a World Series. Unfortunately, they lost to the Red Sox in that one. But that was just me being silly. I think you said it. Like, baseball is not handicapped by these salaries, and if you got the money, you could pay it, right? The San Diego Padres have been, for the greater period of our lives. I mean, I'm not sure exactly how old you are. You don't look too much older than me, Evan. So I feel
33,
like for your life,
I remember
like
when they were last in a World Series, 99 against the Yankees.
And since that time, this is their new regime, right? This is their new, okay, we got a good team out in San Diego, right? Petco Park was one of the newer baseball stadiums they made, and it was just going to shit because nobody was going to the games.
And beautiful San Diego. Beautiful San Diego.
And they weren't winning. So I think that they're taking advantage of the fact that you mentioned Tatis, Soto, Machado, 3 marquee names in this league that frankly sell tickets, right? They sell jerseys. They're exciting players to watch. And let's not act like Manny Machado isn't one of the best defenders at third base. Like, he does play his position well. He has struggled, a lot of times with his hitting and gone through slumps, gone through injuries last year. But he's still a top, I'd say a top 10. But a top 10 third baseman, I feel like, is more than fair. But at the position defensively, he's probably top 5. So, he has his arguments here and there. He has to play better, obviously.
Yeah.
He has to play better. But he also told San Diego, hey, look, I'm going into I think I have like 6 years left on my deal. I'm going to opt out, and I'm going to chase free agency. And if you guys want to keep me, here's what we'll do. And they were essentially like, all right, you know what? We want to keep this trio together because we did just go out and trade a bunch for Soto. We finally are getting Tatis back. And we saw when all 3 of these guys are with us, it can be dangerous. It can be dangerous. So you got to believe that they have high hopes for that trio, and they're all on long-term deals. So if they can have those guys for the next 8 years minimum, I think it's a win for San Diego.
Yeah.
I agree. I see that.
It does sound crazy though. I mean, yeah.
Sometimes you got to pocket watch sometimes with these big deals. Like, what are you doing with all that money, man? But all in all, if it justifies the talent that they already have, they have pitching in place. They have Yu Darvish. They have stars littered across the board. They're on the West Coast, a beautiful city to play baseball. Sometimes you got to go for it, and to go for it, you got to pay the money.
And we saw that with
my guy,
the Yankees. The Dodgers obviously going after it every year financially.
Oh, and they got Bogarts too, right? They signed Bogarts to a big deal, right?
Oh, they did.
Sometimes you gotta pay the money if you want to.
You don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, I know. I was hesitant on bringing it up. You mentioned you mentioned how you feel about the Red Sox, and those guys been penny pinching lately.
I'll get you back. That's why I was gonna say Red Sox when I mentioned big teams play big money, but we're not paying that money.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with the ownership group, especially when you've had the Red Sox have had such a level of sustained success since 2004 all the way down to 2018. I don't understand. And it's a marquee franchise in all of sports. Everyone knows what the Red Sox are.
Yeah.
They have one of the most famous stadiums in all of sports. They have a community that's always going to support them. I don't understand what's going on with them in their pocketbook right now.
I mean, I texted Julian when the Xander thing happened. I was like, yo, that's wild. But then when the Michael Walker release happened, I was like, yo, you guys just let go one of your best pitchers, and that's I don't know. We'll see, man. We'll see.
Yeah, like we gotta hold it down. We're doing a little bit too much. We're hurting ourselves.
Feel me. Y'all feel my pain. So with that being said, let's go to the NBA. We can stop talking about baseball. I've had enough. And it's going to be a long season for the Red Sox. I'll say that because we haven't made it's much like the Heat. We haven't done much to our roster to improve. And Pat Riley, sleep at the wheel, didn't do anything in the offseason, didn't do anything at the trade deadline, got 2 guys at the buyout market who are over 32 years old and are big men that don't handle the ball. We need a point guard on this team. We didn't do enough, and frankly, we're seeing that right now. We're slipping out of that play-in. We're gonna be a 10 seed soon enough. So the Heat need to play better basketball. I'll start off with this NBA talk saying that the Heat need to play better basketball and finish out this season at the least in 8th seed. And it's so sad we're saying that. Evan, this is a great episode to have you on for the first time. I hope we have you back, by the way, because we've had a good time so far, and we appreciate your opinions here. But the Knicks play the Heat tonight. It's 12-8. It's 12-19 on the East Coast. It's Friday morning. So we appreciate you staying up late with us as well. But the Knicks play the Heat tonight. I texted Sean, Sean. And I asked him.
Big time Knicks vibes over here. It's all the way the fuck up right now for the Knicks. I text.
Now, not to cut you off because I want you to go into that. So before you do, I texted Sean and I said, "Yo, give me 3 words that summarize the New York Knicks 7-game win streak y'all are on." And his 3 words were dominant, sustainable, and encouraging. Mm-hmm. So I texted you the same thing.
I just said it's fucking up. It's fucking up. It's up. I'm a diehard Knicks fan, right? And it's not an easy life. Most times you end up being the butt of the jokes. And a lot of times, even in the times we've been able to as a team, they've been able to have success. You could tell it was fleeting. It wasn't something that was going to last long. But him saying, it's encouraging, sustainable being number one. The Knicks have been able to build a good, solid NBA team in a very sustainable manner. We have the top three players on the team, though they are paid high, none of them are on a max contract. We basically got Jalen Brunson on a super discount. One Eastern Conference Player of the Month today, as it currently stands. Knicks are 10 games above 500. I could count on one hand how many times that's happened in the last 20 some odd years. So it's definitely up. It's a team that if you watch enough of the games, the defense is on the string. The dudes they all just seem really happy to be playing basketball. And that's with Josh Hart coming into the lineup and kind of eating at some dudes' minutes, eating at RJ Barrett's minutes. He's a third overall pick. He just got an extension. Most times that would cause some sort of rift amongst the team. You know what I mean? He's the guy that got drafted high. He's the guy who got drafted after Zion, after Ja. You expect certain type of things from a player like that. And even he's been able to take, he's not closing out games as much anymore. He's not getting as much shot attempts anymore. But what does it matter when you're up 15 and the game's already over?
Right.
So I think being able to see that as a team, it's super encouraging, and it's something that you can see it being, very sustainable. And then to kind of counterpoint that against the Heat, you think of the Knicks and the Heat, you think of two very different name and reputations, especially when it comes to the Heat. The Heat, everybody, everyone has a healthy fear about going against the Heat. Even though when you look at the last few off seasons, like adding Kyle Lowry to a huge deal when he's already 36 and has already reached the pinnacle, he's already won a championship. So
I've always hated Kyle Lowry.
Yeah, I've never been a big Kyle Lowry guy. He did ball his face off to win the championship with Toronto. I think he had 14 points, 14 assists, but the timing
was when Kevin Durant was hurt, Achilles.
Yeah, when Kevin Durant got hurt. The timing of those assists, I think, were what were major. But they signed him to a huge deal. When you sign a guy to a huge deal and you bring him to Miami, you want to bring him a little hungry, and then not the type of hungry that he is, where he's eating and getting bigger. You want to bring him hungry where he wants to win. Then the Duncan Robinson deal, he gets one season where he's shooting above 40% from threes, and you just throw him 5 years, $95 million. That's kind of absurd. So then it ends up putting the Heat in a position where they're constantly using guys, scrap heap guys or G League guys that are able to pop.
Guys, undrafted guys.
Max Strus, Gabe Vincent, dudes of those ilk. They have to rely on those kind of guys heavy because they've kind of struck out on their bigger deals. But they're the Miami Heat. They've been able to get far with reputation. And when it comes playoff time, the Miami Heat perform. Jimmy Butler performs. He's like on two different scales. There's regular season Jimmy Butler, and then there's playoff Jimmy Butler. Two entirely different people. And sometimes it doesn't manifest itself that well. Last year, Heat were a 1 seed. This year, they're looking at the play-in tournament, because the disparity of regular season Jimmy Butler, playoff Jimmy Butler, the rest of the East loaded up. The rest of the East has gotten tougher. With Cleveland being a top seed in the NBA in the East, with the Knicks, kind of, entering themselves in there. And then even though Brooklyn's like now more on the back burner, when they had KD and Kyrie earlier in the season, they ate up a lot of wins that were available in the East. You know what I mean? So it kind of makes it a little bit difficult to just ride on reputation or just ride on past successes for a team like Miami coming into the playoffs this year when they're not really, making those big time moves that you would expect from a Pat Riley driven team. This is the guy that brought home LeBron James, brought home Chris Bosh. That I'm sure that's no easy feat.
Didn't pay Dwayne Wade.
Let him walk like on some funky business to turn around. And I think that same offseason they gave Oh man, who's the dude missing it too? Tyler
Hassan White.
Johnson.
Tyler
Tyler
Johnson.
Johnson, a lot of bread. Hassan Whiteside, a lot of bread. You know,
And then after that, we gave James Johnson, we gave Kelly O, we gave Deion Waiters back,
yeah,
and so Pat Riley, yeah, to your point, like Pat Riley, he'll try to fill out the roster with these guys who he believes in, right? And he's going to do anything he can to make sure that this team competes. And I respect the hell out of that every time. Like I'm always going to respect the fact that the Miami Heat are not proud to tank ever. They're never the team that wants to get the high draft pick just because and feel like we can bottom out for a year and take some time off. We're never going to be that team, but there has to be a point of understanding that superstars run this league, right? And if you have a superstar and if you have a rising star, they need help. They need help, point blank, period. Well, we can't expect a guy like Gabe Vincent, a guy like Victor Oladipo is another guy you didn't mention, but Victor
always in and
Oladipo
out of the lineup.
who's hurt all the time. His knees aren't going to help him out, and he doesn't shoot the ball well anymore. He doesn't play up to, all-star standards, and we're expecting that type of basketball from him. So it's just been real frustrating to see the lack of, attention to this roster makeup. You lose PJ Tucker, not to say that he would have helped this team this year, but it just goes to show like other teams are doing things to make the moves to get them to the championship. Look at the Phoenix Suns, look at the Dallas Mavericks, right? These guys are giving it up and attacking what they can to strike gold. Yeah, we've won, in 2011 or 2012, 2013. We went to the finals in 2020. We were a shot away from the finals last year, but you got to think about the future. Like the Knicks traded for Josh Hart. If the Heat would have traded for Josh Hart, I'm not saying we're a 4 seed, but we might be a 5 seed. We might be a 6 seed.
It's definitely a different battery pack you put into that team. That sometimes the Heat look a little bit lifeless, especially on the offensive end.
Word.
They're not a very fast
Can't make
paced team.
shots.
They don't shoot a lot of threes. The guys who can shoot threes, they don't play like Duncan Robinson because he can't guard he can't stop a nosebleed. Even Tyler Hero, someone who can hit threes, he doesn't shoot them at a high enough clip. He doesn't shoot enough
he doesn't play
to make that difference. And he's another guy who doesn't play difference. So the heavy reliance on Butler and even Bam Adebayo, another guy who though his offense has come along a lot more this past season, he's shooting a lot more. He's a little bit more aggressive than he was the past few seasons. It's still he's not the everyone get on my back, I'm going to take you home kind of guy.
Of course.
And that's a little bit what the disconnect with the Heat is right now. And Jimmy Butler, you already know what you're getting with him in the regular season. He's going to do just enough to get you by. But when you're the 8th seed in the playoffs, that might not work out when you have to probably see Boston first. You might have to see Milwaukee first. You might actually, if they see the Sixers first, they might have a chance because
you might want that one.
Yeah, you might want that one. But if you end up having to see Milwaukee or Boston first, and you're not already on that 5th or 6th gear, it's gonna get late for you early.
Yeah. So we talked about the Knicks in the East Coast. This is a playoff party crasher. I'll give that credit to you. You brought that up, right? This is a playoff party crasher on the East. You guys have won 7 straight. You guys are at the 5 seed right now, and it doesn't seem like you guys are slowing down. It doesn't seem like this is a fluke. It doesn't seem like everybody else is just getting they're getting the best out of everybody's getting the best out of the Knicks. The Knicks have been playing consistent good basketball, and Charles Barkley actually said Jalen Brunson is one of the best offseason acquisitions of all time. Like, you guys, what you're getting out of Jalen Brunson night in, night out, everybody thought what he did last year in the playoffs was a fluke. Oh, okay, who's going to sign him? He's not a true point guard. He can't get to his spots. He's too small. All that shit is out the window.
That's out the window.
Jalen Brunson is him. He's an all-star caliber player who could have been an all-star this year. And I'm not going to go and say he was robbed, because I think James Harden was robbed as well. So, I think the guys that made it deserved it, but he definitely played all-star level basketball. There's just not enough spots on that team,
And you got to look at the way the Knicks were able to get him. The Knicks came into the offseason last year. They didn't have free salary cap. They were able to make maneuvers using just the 11th pick that they had in the draft that they they chose to trade it for 3 more picks, take those picks to shed Kemba Walker's contract, shed Alec Burks' contract, shed Nerlens Noel contract, moves like that, shedding the contract, shedding the mistakes that you already made, something that a team like Miami could have done, to then be able to get in and sign the free agent like Jalen Brunson, to actually get someone at the mantle at point guard, a position that suffered for the New York Knicks for years. I'm talking about even when they had Stephon Marbury, it's not like the Knicks did anything, and he was the last high-level point guard that played for the Knicks. So just being able to kind of, as a front office, maneuver in those ways to acquire Jalen Brunson, it put the Knicks in the position that they're now able to play competitive ball. And then to speak more a little bit on Jalen Brunson, you look at the Dallas Mavericks, where they had to actually give up assets to get a guy like Kyrie Irving when they had Jalen Brunson already in-house last year, would have had him on a cheaper deal, would still have the wing defenders that they need to compete in the playoffs. And it may just seem like the only issue there with Jalen Brunson not being able to be what he is now for the Knicks is that maybe they just play a little too heavy Luka ISO ball, and that could be what's hurting them overall.
Yeah, definitely. And it's a great point you mentioned right there, that this Dallas Mavericks team is the same team that went to 7 games in the Western Conference Finals, right? They were a game away from getting to that.
I think five.
5. It was 5 games they lost
to the Warriors. Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. That was the semifinals where they played.
Where they smoked the Suns in the game 7.
Yeah.
There we go. Okay, yeah. It makes total sense. No, yeah. Makes total sense. So, but they're a game away, from getting there, and 2 games away. Sorry.
Still, you're on the precipice. You're right there. You're in the Western Conference Finals.
You're right there, and it's the Warriors. They're going to be back this year. I think the Warriors, when Steph gets healthy, and they're going to find their role and get hot right before playoff time. But we're seeing right now that if Kyrie and Luka don't play, and get 40 points a game, are they going to have sustainable success? Is there going to be enough defense on that Dallas Mavericks team without Finney Smith now, without Spencer Dinwiddie, who's a bigger guard? Are they going to be able to sustain that? You can only hope. And of course, Kyrie brings the glitz and the glamour, and he's a great name to have. We don't know. So that's interesting to see. But I wanted to talk about the Sacramento Kings, man. That was a team in the Western Conference that, by the way, we might have lost Evan there, but I think we're working on getting him back. All good. We'll get you unmuted here just in a second. Give us a second here, because I did want your take on this as well. So the Kings, though, I'm gonna just kick this off with the Kings. They got the coach of the coach of the month in the Western Conference, Mike Brown. They're riding high. It's what is it? It's March 3rd now. They're the 3 seed in the West. I did not believe that they were going to be here by the time All-Star break was over. They're still here. They're still competing. They were in one of the highest scoring games in NBA history a couple nights ago. I believe it was last Friday versus the Clippers. Came out with a win, and they're scrappy. They do have to work on some things defensively, but they have that was what's his name? De'Aaron Fox is like the Jalen Brunson. He could have been an All-Star this year. Sabonis got it. He deserved it. But, De'Aaron Fox is playing, as good basketball for their team. And it just sounds so weird hearing Sacramento Kings 3 seed in the West, right? 2006 was the last time that team made the playoffs. That's the longest drought in all of sports. You got to be happy for them. You can't hate on it. And I'm not hating on it. EP will tell you I'm against them being a top 4 seed, just in reality, based on what I've seen. Obviously, this is a different team, but there's not a lot of experience on that team. And I think that when things start coming down to the wire, there are teams like the Warriors in the Western Conference that are going to rise up. And I haven't looked at the standings just yet, but there are some teams that are going to kind of funnel them out to the 5, 6 seed, maybe even 7 seed, possibly, just because of how close knit the Western Conference is. So I'm excited to see what they can do. But as of right now, I'm still going to stick to my guns and say they're not a top 4 seed when the regular season finishes. EP, you have anything on the Suns?
Warriors just put 24 on the Clippers is what I'll say. That just ended right now. And the Kings, I mean, I hit you up. I told you I think they listen to ATS, bro, because ever since you started talking about them and saying, you know, they're gonna slip, they're gonna fall, they just continue to do what they do. To be honest, it's there's no other way to put it. They're balling in the West right now, and they're I think a decent sleeper. Granted, they make it to the playoffs. I don't, like you said, inexperienced young guys. I don't see them making it past the first round. And if they do, they're getting swept in the second round. But it's exciting. It's exciting to see this young Sacramento team kind of merge out of the West and shake the room a little bit.
What you thinking, Evan? Hey, Ev, we're gonna get back to you. We're gonna get right back to you, but I got you muted on my end. Let me figure out that, and we'll get back to you on the Kings talk. 1 second here. First live show, you know, everything can't be perfect.
Hey.
There gotta be some technical difficulties. ESPN does it, you know. I see NBA TV do it all the time. Don't worry. Now, in the meantime, though, I'll flip the topic and I'll get back to that one because I do want to hear your thoughts on the Kings. But I want to talk about the Bucks. They've won 15 straight games heading into March. Giannis Antetokounmpo is playing some of his best basketball, and I think it was just last week. EP, we talked. Was it last week when J1 was on the podcast with us?
Yeah.
So last week we spoke about players that have the most pressure. Can you double check that you're not muted, by the way, Evan? Like you don't have yourself muted? And if anything, just like maybe leave and join back. I'm not sure. But we talked about players with the most pressure to win a championship this year. And I heard a lot of names, some of them being Jokic, some of them being Chris Paul, some of them being EP. What else did we say? We mentioned
Russ West.
We mentioned Russell Westbrook was another one.
Yeah.
And those are all strong candidates. You know, last week I mentioned that Giannis Antetokounmpo was the guy for me, right? I think Giannis Antetokounmpo is under the most pressure this year to win a ring in the sense that, you know, it's right in front of them, right? The Bucks have everything they need. They're actually, it's funny, I saw that they are the leading candidate for Goran Dragic in that buyout market, which if they end up signing him, that'll be 3 players from the 2020 Miami Heat finals team that ended up beating the Bucks: Jay Crowder, Myers Leonard, and Goran Dragic. So it's a little funny to me, but they have it right in front of them, right? If Boston is there, we got to get past this team, and we couldn't get past them last year. And, you know, we didn't have our number 2 option, and they're going to have him this year. I think that they have to take full advantage of that. That's a series they should win. And then in the Western Conference, as good as the teams are, it's a lot of uncertainty, right? Kevin Durant, we'll talk about him in a second, being with his new team and how good he looked or how easy he makes it look after missing time. But they still got a lot of things to figure out, right? We don't know what the Suns are going to make out of this situation. The Denver Nuggets, as much pressure as Jokic has that we spoke about, is he going to step up and lead them to a finals? And then during a finals run, is he going to be able to win that? LeBron's injury on the West Coast, the Lakers don't look like they're going to be a threat. And not to say that they looked like they were. I don't want to make it seem like that's my opinion. But what I'll say is that they look like they were on track after the deadline to make a play-in run. And in a play-in situation, I'll take Bron versus whoever. Not saying I take him to win, but I think Bron can compete with the best of them. So the West has a lot of uncertainty, and the East has, you know, 2 clear-cut teams that should win. Bucks, Celtics. And if you're telling me that Giannis can't get past that one team that he always struggles against, we got to start questioning, hey, can you get out the East a little more? Can you get out the East a little more? And there's time, but the time is now, I'll say.
Definitely. That it's interesting. A lot of sports are turning into a win now. There's not a lot of like building. There's not a lot of foundation. It's like, yo, we need to win right now. We need the pieces to this puzzle immediately, and we got to get there. And like you're saying, man, the road from Milwaukee in the East, it seems wide open with the exception of having to get past Tatum and Brown over there in Boston. The East seems wide open for Milwaukee. I think you have a very valid point there.
Yeah, and I mean, to your point, as far as like we got to win now, we've seen a lot of teams make moves, more so in the West, like trying to find their players and get things right. But the East is two prime examples. The top two teams in the East are two prime examples of let's build through the draft. Let's surround our star players with role players, and let's bet on ourselves. And the Bucks did that. And Giannis is at this point in his career where he should be in the running for Eastern Conference Finals year in, year out. And Jason Tatum is showing us that he deserves an MVP sooner than later because he's playing great basketball and he knows how to play with a guy like Jaylen Brown, who's also a scorer, wing defender, guard. Type of guys. So it's really impressive what the Celtics are able to do, and they've done this with 3 different head coaches, right? Brad Stevens was there building it. Ime Udoka came in and fucked it all up, if you get what I'm saying. And now Joe Mazzulla was the All-Star head coach for the Eastern Conference this year. So you got to give credit where it's due. And I will say this: ever since Danny Ainge left, things have been uppity up for Boston. So,
hey, real quick, shout out to that boy Benjamin, friend of the show, Benjamin Rivera. I was talking to him the other day, and he made a joke about bringing Ime to South Beach, and I told him, "You think the women were bad in Boston? Don't bring that boy to the Heat. You know how many women with cafecito are gonna be walking around the facility trying to get this motherfucking coffee? You know."
Shout out to Ben, man. No, that's hilarious, yo. I don't want that distraction in Miami. We don't need that. We got a head coach who's one of the greatest ever. He's got a beautiful wife and 2 beautiful kids, and he focuses on that and Miami Heat basketball. That's it. We don't need anything else, okay? I wanted to, you mentioned friend of the show. We're still working on getting Evan back, man. I miss him. He's figuring that out. But I wanted to bring up some questions because I did ask for questions, and I got about, not crazy, a little 2, you know what I'm saying, a little 2-piece, but we'll answer 2-piece before anything else. So this is a general question. Shout out to my boy David. You can follow him on Instagram at 777leather. He's asking this is a very general and broad question. Is professional sports manipulated or are they authentically played? And you have the gambling perspective. I don't. I don't know if that alters your mindset on things. It does alter a lot of gamblers' mindset on things. I'll start off and say that I think professional sports are definitely bet upon, right? There are high-ranking people that do place bets on things and I'm sure want things to go a certain way. And I'm not saying in every situation or every game this is happening, but we're not going to act like we're that oblivious. However, in basketball, you still got to make the shot, still got to make the free throw. In baseball, you still got to make that hit, you still got to strike that guy out, you still got to hit the home run.
Still got to make
in football, you still got you got to make the tackle, you got to make the throw, you got to make the catch. So as much as you can try to manipulate it, you can't tell me that in football all 53 on both sides are in on this. You can't tell me in basketball that all 13 guys, including the coach, are in on this, right? So as much as you can try to do and want to do, there's only so much you can do because the players still have to go out there and perform. That's going to be my take on that. What about you?
I mean, is it possible? 1,000%, absolutely, it's possible that it's manipulated. I saw a report recently that sports fall under like entertainment, so therefore they can be like scripted. We already know
Hmm.
the whole script thing that's going around with the NFL. Is it possible? Absolutely. I mean, we've seen cases of it. We saw the referee scandal in the NBA. You know what I mean? We saw
Tim
the
Duncan.
we saw the Arizona State point shaving scandal back in I want to say the mid 90s. So I mean it's definitely possible. Right now though, it could seem so, but I mean at the end of the day, I personally I wouldn't gamble on sports knowing it was like WWE out here. You know what I mean?
Right,
Um
right, right.
so I mean, I guess in my heart of hearts, I want to believe that that all is fair in love and war, you know what I mean?
Fair, fair. I respect that. I have one more question. This is actually producer of the show, Lou. He said a fan question. Finding it right here. 1 second. It's got a fan question. Said, can you talk about the Eagles wanting the 4th and 15 play instead of the onside rule kick? I'm not sure if you heard about that. You actually heard about this the other day. So the Eagles
I haven't heard
proposed
about this
to the
actually.
league. This is interesting. The Eagles proposed to the league instead of an onside kick rule or the onside kick, teams would have a 4th and 15 play to be able to determine getting the ball back. And I think that'd be great for the NFL, honestly. I think they need like 24 out of 32 teams to vote yes on it. I'm not sure that the votes will all be there, but in my opinion, this brings more excitement to the league. It brings more opportunity for scoring. It brings another chance for a team that's in a I guess worse position in that game. And um, the NFL moved and granted the request of the Bills to give the other team another chance in overtime, right? After one team touches the ball, if you score a touchdown in the playoffs, we still have a chance. I think the NFL is a progressive league, and they have been for the last few years. So shout out to Roger Goodell for the things he has done recently, because it has been a very slow league before. It has been a very vanilla, boring league, but I feel like they are changing their ways. So, um, with that being said, yeah, I think if the NFL was to implement this 4th and 15 rule, games would go down to the wire a little more. When it's 2 minutes left and you need two scores, and you can get a 4th and 15 play for possession back, that's exciting.
No, I agree. I agree. Again, all these rules at first are gonna seem, I like the word wonky because we used it earlier.
Yeah,
But through time, I'm sure we'll see what the true intentions were meant to be. Because at the end of the day, this is a business, and they're not doing anything that's necessarily bad for business. You know.
that's fair. That's fair. So right now, I mean, I wanted to hear Evan's final thoughts on the Kings and stuff. I don't think we're gonna have enough time for that. I wanted to get into your EP's EPL segment. Talk to us about the EPL before we get out of here. I know Champions League is also upon us, so close us out with that one if you can.
I'm gonna talk about a couple teams, but specifically Arsenal. A lot of Arsenal fans beginning of the season, they were like, "Yeah, we're balling, we're doing good, but we're not gonna win the EPL. Like, it's just not gonna happen. We're gonna shit the bed down the road, and it's just not gonna happen." Man City, Tottenham, one of them will come in, swoop in, win the EPL. Granted, we're still about 14 games left in the EPL season, but Arsenal made a crazy move yesterday, beat Everton 4-0 with the revenge factor because they had just lost to them last month 1-0, and moved 5 points clear of Man City, that's in the number two spot right behind them. Man City got to play Newcastle, who tied them early on in the year this weekend, 3-3. So that's going to be a definitely hard fought game. They did what they had to do, Arsenal. Man City is right there at number two, but I think Champions League is going to take a little more precedent for Man City and they might give it a last push in these last couple of weeks to get that EPL title. But Arsenal, they're in form. Martinelli's going crazy. Saka's going crazy. EPL is exciting, man. Here we go.
Hell yeah, man! So that's EP's EPL. Obviously, every week we're gonna keep diving into that English Premier League as the Champions League closes. We'll kind of go away with that, but we appreciate you, E, for always giving the world what they need.
Hey.
I guess with that being said, it was a fun show. This is our first live stream. EP, I appreciate the time you took. Lou, I already know how I feel.
Lou.
Evan, I know you're not here, but we definitely appreciate you for stopping in and spending the
back.
Oh, we got him back. All right. So before we get out of here, I want to hear your take on the Sacramento Kings and what they've been able to do over the course of the season. And do you feel like they can sustain this going into a playoff run?
They just kind of get lost in the conversation. You kind of just feel like the NBA has been operating with 29 teams and then the Kings. So it's cool to have them back in there. I do think right now with the West, there's a lot of names you already know in the West, right? You got the Denver Nuggets, they got Jokic. You got the Suns, who are now loaded with adding KD. The Clippers, you never know what you're going to get with them. You never know who's in the lineup, who's out the lineup. And now they got Westbrook, which makes them even more like you can't really put a gauge on them, The Warriors, they're an institution at this point. I don't care what seed they are. They're if they got Curry, they're playing for championships, The Lakers, if they're kind of able to crawl their way back into the conversation. And then you got the Kings, right? I think only one of their key guys has any type of playoff experience, and that's the bonus. And I think that playoff experience is very limited, nothing outside the first round. But
LeBron.
They are one of the top offenses. Yeah, LeBron. He had the East on lock for a really long time. Nobody was eating on that block for a really, really long time. But they're one of the top offenses in all the entire NBA. And two, they got people who are dogs. De'Aaron Fox is a dog. Malik Monk is a dog. If you saw after that game where they beat the Clippers in double overtime and they were interviewing them, asking them about, how do you feel about Westbrook being on the Clippers? They're like, man, we don't give a fuck what's going on with these other teams, man.
Yo, that was the realest shit ever.
You know what I mean? And that's the kind of mindset a team like that, who's crashing the party, who's going to have their first real soiree into the playoffs. That's the kind of mindset they need to have. And they have the horses to kind of go. It's just going to be a matchup thing. And the matchup thing is going to be, understanding that whomever they're seeing on the other side of the fence has more experience than them. So they have to be able to make up for that in other ways. And that's effort. That's going to be dog. That's going to be, defense. Is that going to happen for them? I don't know. Is it going to be a learning experience? They got Mike Brown in, as you said. He was the Western Conference Coach of the Month. He's been an assistant on the Golden State Warriors throughout this entire run, so he knows what it takes to have that championship medal. Maybe he's able to instill that in that guy and his guys, and maybe they'll be able to get out the first round. Do I see it getting any further than that? Probably not. But you know what? Winning is hard in the NBA. As they know, they haven't been in the playoffs since 2006, and it's still something to hang your hat on. You get to the dance. If you get to dance around a little bit, you might not go home anywhere with anyone, but you still got to dance for a little bit, and that was fun. So if they could take solace in that and then start to build on that, and then maybe they still have all their draft picks. There's moves available for them in the off season. If they're really ready if they're really real about contending, they'll be able to continue to make those steps progressing into the future. But for this year, just be happy you made it to the dance and danced around a little bit.
Totally agree. No, definitely. I mean, it would be interesting if they get like a Dallas in the first round and then
because
see
Dallas
that
can't guard
dynamic.
anyone.
We saw that, and I was just mentioning earlier that Kyrie put up 40, Luka put up 40, and if that's what it's going to take for them to get these wins, it's going to be trouble. So, I mean, they're still going to figure things out. It's only been like 5-6 games, but we got a fun down to the wire playoff run for East and West, and we'll be here covering it and talking about it week in, week out. We hope to get you back here on the podcast, before the NBA season is over, and probably more after that. We definitely enjoyed this here. Two good guests. We had J1, and now we got Evan. So we appreciate your time, bro. I know it's late. Get some rest, and we'll catch up with you. All right.
Yeah, and thank you guys for having me. I'm always down to come down as long as I'm still welcome. So, just hit me up. I got a lot to say, and, sports never stops, and I won't either.
Hell yeah. Appreciate you, man. So,
right, man.
We'll catch up with each other. Y'all be good, man. Thank you for listening. Yeah.